Welcome to the third episode of our Country Story People podcast. I'm your host David Salomon, Sal for short. I'm talking to John Hartley, accomplished artist, musician, cultural statesman and advocate for the Kubirri Story of the Mosman area in North Queensland. In this episode, John shares a community project with us. It leads up to an exhibition in July 2023 and is about developing culture and language, including songs, stories, dances and storybooks, and reviving language and culture in schools and the community. So if you're interested in learning more about the crucial role language and culture play and how we can support the effort to preserve and celebrate them, tune in now. Good morning, John. Good to talk to you again.
Good morning, David Yallada.
Now, you've been doing quite a lot of work in the project leading up to the exhibition in July. Can you just give us a bit of an idea of some of the language and cultural resources that you've been working on?
Well, firstly, you can't do any of this work without working with other people. So I just want to be clear, it's not just me, but of course a lot of people are involved in the whole project. But I guess it's been going for about 3 years now, and during that time, of course, we had a long period of time, COVID was impacting on our ability to get out to communities and to have meetings and what have you, you know. But from the very beginning of the project, we advertised how people could use their mobile phone for filming, and that was the idea of that was that if our young people can start taking over those matters of interviewing elders and also documenting country and things like that. So we hosted I think a couple of sessions in regards to filmmaking and using your iPhone to do that. We thought it'd be a useful tool for the future, you know, so that in the future, if our young people get into that sort of thing, then we can do everything in-house, you know. And of course, during the program we had art classes as well, paintings for people to get ready or prepare for the exhibition. We've had workshops on cultural tool making and you know, that involve where you gather those materials and then how you prepare those materials, and be it a spear, a shield or clapsticks or whatever. And of course the language, it takes some time to get going for a couple of reasons, you know, like we were looking for a fluent speaker to assist us in that. We were fortunate that we found one, and we commenced language classes twice a week. The language classes themselves, you have to be on top of them all the time, you know, to keep people motivated and things like that. But we also, not only in Mosman, but we extended that language class to Cairns, where a lot of Yalanji Bama are down there, and they expressed an interest in learning Google, learning the language. So we have an elder down in Cairns, Dan O'Shane, who teaches there every weekend, either a Saturday or Sunday on the weekend, and those classes are continuing to be ongoing. Our language teacher lives up in Wudjal. He also teaches at the Bloomfield School up there. The arrangement that we have is when he has a break at the school there, he'll come down into Mosman for a month or so, and during that month we have our lessons down here. In regards to developing resources, as you know, we've had in the earlier days we developed a book based on a very significant storyline, and not only a book, that book was then turned into a video presentation of the story with subtitles in English. We also developed a game that the younger people could learn by, picking out the right language for the question that's being asked, and you have a little beep or something like that. Not a competitive thing, but just a fun learning tool, I think. And the school then started to develop their own resources. They developed an app on the phone in regards to the Google Yalanji language, where you can download it for free, pick it up, and you can learn everyday words, in the language. Currently, the teacher, Juan Walker, of language at the school, the language teacher, along with the children, developed another storybook, which is age appropriate, called Jingamu, which tells the story of the taipan and where his country is and why that's his country and things like that. So that's where we're at currently, and that developing those resources in the school will continue on now, because there's a number of stories that will be suitable. So plans are in the wind to continue making those language resources. This school has also developed a number of language cards. I don't know what you'd call them, Sal.
No, like a flip card, are they?
Like a flip card, exactly, which is another useful tool, working with younger kids. They have images associated with them, so they're a very visual tool as well. The Kubirri video, and there's also plans now for the Jingamu story to be put into a video format, which is very similar to the Kubirri story that we developed some years ago. So those two resources will be used within the school, to present to the young people.
And with the stories, as I understand it, they're more than, it's not more than a storybook, but they're stories that are connected to country. Can you just talk us through that a little bit?
I don't know that you can separate the story from country, so they're all related to stories within the Kubirri clan estate. And broadly speaking, our clan estate runs from the south of Port Douglas at the Mowbray River. It goes west to the Great Dividing Range, east out into the sea country, into the continental shelf, and north up to an area we call which is Rocky Point, but more specifically the Dagmar Range, which is our area, and also encompassing parts of Mount Carbine, which is just over the Dividing Range, but was an area that we used a long time ago for hunting the big meat, like jumbanu, which is kangaroo, big kangaroo. Yeah. So they're all stories associated with country, and where those particular totems or animals sort of lived within country and their particular area of country.
I recall when we were driving in that north end of the estate there with one of your elders. He was describing it, saying, "Oh yes, this is all Jingamore here. It goes up to this river line," and we were actually driving through the country and identifying, I guess, boundaries that were given these names of the stories and the dreaming ancestors, Jingamore, from that story, actually part of the country.
Yeah.
I was struggling to some degree to understand exactly how that worked, though it was obvious that it was a very sophisticated way of knowing where you were on country. Is that right?
Oh, it's knowing too, and it's also knowing those areas of country where that taipan habitates. Yeah, Jingamore relates to the lowlands or the flat country areas, and they don't like water, and so you won't find them high up in the mountain areas. That's more the areas for the guriella or carpet snake and things like that. Yeah, but if you look at our main story, which sits in Manjal Dimbi, and the story of Kubirri, there are several animals or totemic ancestors, if you like. There's Gara, a little wallaby, Drumbano, a kangaroo, Gurangi, the cassowary, Walgar is Gowena, Ngangin is like a little porcupine, and Bago is a bird, and of course you have Guriella and or the rainbow serpent also. So all those animals have particular areas of country in where they sit. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're not just housed within that mountain, but they also have stories that go across country. Yeah, from a particular area. So Jingamore will tell you, where that taipan he travels and where he doesn't travel, and then you come to another place where Gurangi, the cassowary, which is a very important story, where he travelled a long time ago out west to Mount Carbine to sit down with his ceremonial brother, the emu. Yeah. And so that really talks about our relationship with our Western, for want of a better word, Yalanji brothers and sisters, and the very deep relationship we had, and also the exchanges of ceremonial processes and gatherings and things like that. That's a very, very old story. But just that one particular story tell you that the interrelationship and connection between between the sunrise and sunset Yalanji was something that goes back many, many thousands of years.
So just to point out that Manjal Dimbi, this primary mountain peak in the range there, is the peak that you see as you're coming into Mossman from the south. It's very obvious on the western skyline as you're driving through there from the highway. Mm-hmm. And that then relates to the whole of the estate, really. You can see that Manjal Dimbi from a large number of places throughout the whole estate, yes, except where there's other ranges or ridges that obscure the view. It struck me how, the two big peaks, Manjal Dimbi and Manjal Jimalji, you can see one or both of those from just about everywhere as a way of knowing where you are on country, I guess.
Absolutely, yes. They're like markers, I guess, or lighthouses, They can be used as markers directionally, travelling through country. But that's right. Whether you're south, west, east, or more north, you'll see Manjal Dimbi standing up, That's why he's like an ancestral grandfather, and he's like the boss for all that country, Yeah.
I remember when we were working on Two Brothers Walking, the documentary that you and our friend Murray George Pilinjara, senior elder, something that struck me at that time, he said, oh yes, when we were looking at the mountain, he says, that's that Jamal mountain, that grandfather mountain, and he says, we've got the same. And he went on to describe how this pattern of reading the landscape is common to, you know, just about everyone, I think, every group around the country, and this connection of story and country and navigation, even, I guess,
Yes.
is just the way, you know, the culture has developed for many groups.
Yes.
And then, of course, that's strengthened by songs and dances. And I gather you've been doing some work in that area as well. Can you tell us about that?
Firstly, I guess that pattern, story pattern, it traverses the whole continent. Environment will change, but stories and law will run throughout, remains the same essentially. Those stories do change over time. That's a natural thing. Once you have a story, and particularly having that story in Google, in a language, from that story will come song. And then, of course, from the songs come the dances, you know. They are all intricately linked together, like pearls on a string, you know. They're not separate. The taproot of all of that is, of course, country, bulbul. And so when you put those things together, and this is why our exhibition is entitled Country, Story and People, because of those reasons. But there's about 13 songs now that have been written in language. We have 4 of our stories, and some of them are quite long, have been interpreted or now written back into Gulgulyalanji. This month, within the next, as soon as the Easter holidays up here has gone away, we'll start working together to develop a number of those dances to those songs. Maybe three or 4 of those songs and dances will be presented at the exhibition for the first time.
So these songs are starting to be performed again there now, is that right?
In doing welcomings to groups, I generally commence by singing a welcoming song to welcome people into country. Yeah. So, Nande bondanda bobongo nyadina wombo jaungara nanda mumbo, and things like that, you know. It's a good way to be welcomed into country through that song, you know. The song tells us that we are sitting in our ancestors' country, you know, that we are Gulgulyalanji, and you know, you're welcome to come with us, you know. Yeah, I suppose not putting a too big a thing on it, but a song is vital. I mean, you know, from birth our old people sung the child into country, you know, the old women sung the young ones into country, you know. So I guess it's going along like that, you know. But of course not the same. Different.
Yes, I know that the song is very much a part of daily life. I mean, for all cultures, really.
Mm.
It's no surprise to know that this is something that's, you know, very strong. Well, more than strong. It's a part of life.
Yeah, it's one of those, and it's one of those tools, and they're also a healing part, you know. Within the healing process, you know, to be able to express through voice, you know, and find your voice and things like that through song, you know, and so songs like that. And recently we done something at the school where my nieces and a grandson were there, and we also put a little dance in that. So the welcome then grows from just a song, but a song and a introductory dance into country, you know. And we are also, Friday afternoons, we're working with the Mossman State School with younger children to develop a choir that will sing a song that's been written specifically for the opening of the exhibition, and that we're being assisted in that by a Jordan Steele, who was an operatic singer and has worked for many years within the music industry and has taught song for many years as well. So we're very fortunate to have people supporting the project. Any of these kinds of things, it's not about a person. It takes a group or a community of people to bring these to fruition. You know? And we're fortunate that we have supportive people around us and willing to assist us in getting to where we envisage we would like to be at the moment.
When sitting and listening to the sounds of those songs, even not understanding the language, there's something magical about it, I think, that transports you to another place. And it's very easy to be part of something that has been happening in this country for a very, very long time, really. To be transported by the story and the song and the sound of the language.
Yes.
It goes beyond language, really.
Yes, yeah, I agree with you. That's it becomes something else, but a very another form of communication beyond just the song or whatever. You know, it's this things that wash over you and then take you into a space.
And particularly for me, sitting around the campfire, you know, in that flickering light, where you sort of are getting a bit drowsy after a, you know, long day, perhaps.
Yes.
It is very powerful to connect with something very deep in the country.
Mm. Yeah, it's certainly nothing that you can easily explain.
Yes.
I think it's about that experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a welcoming, it's a heartening, it's a joyous sense you get from things, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, and that I think that puts people at ease and makes for better relationships. And
well, that's it. It soothes the troubles of the day, really, doesn't it? Yeah, a balm for the soul.
Soothes the troubled soul, eh?
Yes. Yeah, the campfire always does that for me. It takes me to a different, rather than, you know, just thinking about the difference between meeting and, you know, sitting under the, you know, in a room with the lights on, compared to sitting around a campfire. It directs your attention to a different place when you're around the campfire. You know, the conversations are different around a campfire than they would be, you know, in a bright, well-lit room, for example. Am I right there, or is that just me?
Oh no, I think we all experience that. I think that touches many human beings from many places. That's fire is always central to the story, you know, and we all know that you know, you're living in the city and you eventually get away for a weekend and you take a tent or whatever and you go out camping and you're sitting around a fire. You come back and almost a different kind of person, you know, and people wonder, oh, it was so relaxing, it was so beautiful, you know. Of course, these are the gifts that we've been given from the beginning, you know. The sitting in the earth and the waterways and seaways and of course the fire, you know. The fire in Aboriginal communities is always burning, you know.
Yeah.
So the cup of tea is never far away. You clean camp, you set up camp and you collect the wood and you make the fire, you know.
That's right. And it struck me as we were travelling around the country some years back, how the first act of any problem solving begins with a cup of tea,
Yeah.
and whether that was collecting some firewood. Well, usually it was collecting a bit of firewood and
Collecting firewood, that's right, yeah.
parking the
Yeah.
truck in a way that it would form a windbreak,
Yeah.
and it all worked together. It was part of a harmonious sort of way of doing things, that I think we can learn a lot from. And I always think of the simple act of firewood. We was going to get some wood, and one of the old people say, "Oh, not that wood. That's rubbish wood. Too much smoke." And I said, "Get that other one." And I'd go and look for a different piece, and I'd bring that back. No, that's rubbish. And you bring back, and finally you bring back the piece that was acceptable, and I'd look at them both and think, what's the difference? I can't see
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
So deep knowledge there, on every level.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The differences sometimes are so subtle, um, you don't pick it up in your eye,
Mm,
if you're not used to it or brought up
that's right.
in that, in that environment.
And I'm reminded of
Um,
one occasion we were in the rain. There was some problem. It had been wet weather. This was down here in South Australia. It was rain. I thought, how are we going to boil a billy in this rain? That just doesn't sound sensible to me at all. Anyway, there was a bit of tinder to get a little fire started, and then I was privileged to see how it was done. And there was this sort of end of the log, and was built up, and then some sticks on top, damp wood. It had been raining for 3 days, and then there was picking some green leaves to put on top of that. And I thought, what's going on here? And what had happened is, it's a technique for creating like an oven and holding all that heat in, and it dried the sticks within minutes. And probably within 10 minutes I had to get up and move the truck because it was too close to this roaring fire.
yeah.
It was like magic. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, fires could be started in the wet. We know that, Different trees too. Kerosene tree. Well, why do they call it a kerosene tree, I wonder?
Mm.
But anyway, yeah, so people weren't stuck,
Yeah.
The ingenuity and the science around creating fires within heavy rain
Mm.
was there,
And an important skill in your country up there at certain seasons. Um, having lots of rain every day, sort of thing. Just coming back to the exhibition, you've got some visual art is going to be part of that project too, I think, with some of your local artists up there. Is that right?
Currently there's about 40 pieces that will be submitted that we know of. There most probably be more. So that it'll be made up of canvas artworks, photography, photos, old historic photos of people in country. It will show cultural tools like spears, woomera, nulla nulla, shields, rainforest swords, things like that. It'll also show traditional weaving, weaved baskets and techniques. And we also have around about 3 or 4 film clips that we'll show throughout as well. And of course, we'll be showing the Kubirri Story, and hopefully all works out, we'll be also showing the Jingomal story through film. Yeah. Yep. And also and that's where I'm going now when I leave this talk, is I'm going hunting wood for a canoe. So part of what we'll be showing in the exhibition is an old outrigger dugout canoe that were used up here for travel in our sea country. People often think that it was just land we're talking about, but our country also encompasses the waterways and sea country as well, and our rights and interests also lay out in the sea, and as I said before, out to the continental shelf of the Great Barrier Reef. Yeah, our old people used to paddle their way around there in the old dugout. So we're going to do that, recreate an old dugout canoe, put the call out for the young fellas in the community, come along and give us a hand, Yeah, so we can make it a bit of a community thing. Yeah.
You're looking for Milky Pine today, eh?
I'm looking for two. I'm looking for Milky Pine, and we're currently appealing a decision by the council here on the basis of cultural resources. I had a couple of Milky Pine picked out, beautiful trees. I don't like to take them. We've tried everything else beforehand, but we're not taking them flippantly. We're taking them for cultural purposes, to be used for, to assist our young and also for cultural education. So whilst we might not row in them, paddle in them out in the sea every day, we'll still be using them in a cultural manner. But I'll be looking for two trees. The other one is a fig tree, the old fig with the big buttresses on them.
Mm-hmm.
Those buttresses they'll have a shape like a kidney shape.
Yeah.
Well, that's where you carve out the shields, them old big kidney-shaped shields.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be out hunting a couple of those today, and hopefully might be my lucky day. And we'll in the exhibition there'll be three old bayan, or three old houses, or gunyas, some people say gunya, built to show the different styles of living quarters from the old days. That's the inside exhibition. The outside exhibition, of course, will commence with a Wadawadral cleansing ceremony, because this is an exhibition that has been about 100 years in the making. Port Douglas has a very horrific history for Bummer people, and even today it's very rare Bummer will go and congregate in numbers in Port Douglas. But we have to go and say hello to our ancestors there. And say hello and let them know that we're there. And we have an obligation to those old people. We have a responsibility to care and look after those old people too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we'll commence in that through the smoke. Then we'll present some dances, and hopefully our neighbouring people, south Jabbergoy, an invitation is extended to them to come along, and hopefully we'll have some, they'll share some dances with us as well on the night. And of course from there then we go into the welcomings and the song by the Mossman State School Choir, and then into a formal welcome, and then into the dignitaries and what have you, and then finally we get to cut the ribbon on the exhibition, which will run from the 10th of July to the 16th. Yeah. So we're in countdown period now. We're looking at 11 weeks to go and an overwhelming amount of stuff to do.
Yes.
And so we're sort of in the miracle space at the moment.
Lovely. A recent news report talked about a person disregarding advice and warning signs about the dangers of crocodiles in the Crooktown area. I asked about First People's perspective.
Well, that's around the Bloomfield, Woodjall area, and
Yeah.
actually, we just wrote a letter of support for those people in that community.
Uh-huh.
That person who was bitten and his dog was taken, he sacrificed his dog there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a stupid act.
Yes.
It's a well-known area. It's a well-known croc place. It's well signed. There's warnings there, and a person through just absolute stupidity wants to go there and take his life in his hands, and then gets taken by a croc, and then scratches their head. And that poor dog,
Yeah.
no fault of its own, was the sacrificial lamb.
Yes.
And
and then the crocodile.
and then the authorities go up there,
Yeah.
shot one of them, and removed or euthanized, killed another one. But those crocodiles there are well known to the community. They're part of their family. They're part of the kinship system. And the government's just to go in and willy-nilly go in and kill those crocs, the Bilngamo, then it's they need to have understanding of the cultural significance of that Bilngamo, in the Bummer culture anyway, because they are family, and they shoot or kill Bilngamo who's in his own environment, and yet they do nothing for the stupidity of the people who choose to ignore signs, or who choose to ignore community elders who tell them not to go here and things like that. It's just madness.
It is. It's great talking to you once again. Thanks for that information about the dates and so on. I'm sure there's going to be a big crowd and a lot of people are going to be interested in that. And as you say, it's something that people have been waiting for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thanks for the yarn, and look after yourself, and Jumanadjo.
Oh, well, Jumanadjo.